Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin mining stocks. Let's start off with fear and greed. And on CNN, we have gone up from fear into neutral. The markets have been doing pretty well this week as far as some of the top stocks, and fear and greed on pie vesting also up there as well. So for crypto, we're lagging behind a little bit, which could be a good thing. This might be an opportunity to get in ahead of a positive move, but crypto is right now still in fear. And as you can see on the fear and greed index, we have been in this downtrend, though. I do have some hope right here. We are making higher lows. I'm wondering if we're getting ready to make a big move to possibly get some higher highs. Again, you can wait for confirmation before you buy. You won't get the max amount of profits, but it's still a safer way to invest your money if you're looking to reduce risk. When we zoom out a little bit, you can see we had that spike in greed and we've just been going down into fear. So maybe we're going to stay down here for a little bit, chop sideways before eventually going back up. As far as the alt season index, which is pretty much correlated with the Bitcoin mining stocks and how well they do, I look at Bitcoin mining stocks not just as stocks, but as altcoins. And as far as the alt season index, we have a higher low, so not the worst. And going over to the Bitcoin rainbow chart, we are still in the lowerish end values overall as far as long-term perspective is concerned. I do videos on Bitcoin, crypto, Bitcoin price action every week. I'm going to be switching it from Tuesdays to Mondays. And Bitcoin mining stock videos, which I used to do every Wednesday, I think I'm going to do now every Tuesday. Let's go over to Bitcoin quick before we jump into the mining stocks like Marathon, Riot, CleanSpark, Cipher, Terwolf, Bit Digital, Bitfarms, Iris Energy, and Core Scientific. If you have any others that you want me to take a look at as far as Bitcoin mining stocks, please comment those below, and as well comment if you own any of these Bitcoin mining stocks yourself. So let's start off with Bitcoin, and we had this big 30% correction not too long ago, and even the markets and the S&P had a big correction as well. And something to note, if we go down to something like Nvidia or any of the others, they had this correction too. We had this giant spike in the VIX. It was the third highest volatility spike since the third highest, including, I should say, the COVID crash as well as the 2008 great financial crisis. But this dip's already been bought up and we are already in low volatility again. So I think this is a warning shot. Everyone is super hypersensitive to conditions in the market, waiting for things to go bad. There's been talks about recessions for a while, yield curve on inversion, blah, 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 rate cuts, all that stuff. But I think some of that stuff maybe is going to be delayed a little bit until it actually happens. So right now, this may be just a buy the dip opportunity. And if stocks are starting to do positive, that may be a signal that Bitcoin might possibly, and the mining stocks might possibly have some positive room to run here. If we take a look at the daily, you can see that Bitcoin has been hanging on to this 200-day moving average, just chopping sideways a little bit. Had this channel drawn, and right after I drew it, it popped up price-wise, came back down a little bit, but it ran into resistance now for the second time against the 50-day moving average. So maybe this channel isn't going to really mean much. But the 50-day moving average, if it breaks above that, I think that would be pretty positive for Bitcoin crypto market. Of course, there's a 100-day moving average as well. And as you guys can see, we are in this downward channel, but we're on the lower end of it. We tagged the 786 fib retracement level, as well as the 50-week moving average. And in my opinion, anytime we stay at or above the 50-week moving average, we're still bullish. But once we fall under, that's the orange line, by the way, the 50-week moving average, that's typically a time when you go bearish for a little bit. But not that that doesn't mean you can't get good deals and discounts on your assets. So let's jump into it. Let's start off with Marathon Digital Holdings, and let's zoom out a bit. We can see that I have this fib retracement drawn, and Marathon is right at, it's still at the zero point 0.5 fib. Last week when we looked at this, it was pretty much in the same area. Still at this 0.5 fib, we have all these moving averages, the 50, 100, 200. They were support. Now they're kind of resistance. They're hanging along with it. We also do have these lower lows in this downward trend line right here as well. So Marathon, I think, still good long-term value and something to keep in perspective. We talked about the balance sheet on Marathon a couple weeks ago, how they had something like a 5-to-1 asset to liability ratio. We're going to be taking a look at that for Riot today, and I'm going to try to do a different one each and every week. But something to keep in perspective is at its peak, again, look at when this peak, that was the very top of Bitcoin. You can see the data at the bottom around November. Marathon had a market cap, let's see if we do a quick calculation here, 80 divided by 16, 4 or 5x times this. So it's in the 20s as far as 20 billion. Something to keep in mind is that this still has room to run to not only get back to its former all-time high, but possibly even higher. So really important levels to watch for that I've seen with altcoins as far as every cycle is concerned. Again, if you're interested in videos about cycles, I do Bitcoin mining stock, or sorry, that's today's video. I do Bitcoin rainbow chart and cycle videos now every Monday. If we are to have another cycle peak like this, some things I watch for is first, are we going to break above the 76? Well, actually, I should say first, is the altcoin or mining stock dead, or is it showing some life? I think this is showing some life. Next test, is it going to break above the 76? Macro, long-term perspective. Altcoins like Bitcoin Cash, XRP, didn't do that last cycle. So that's a good area to possibly take a little bit of profit or see what the price action's doing. And then all-time high. Past that, we look for higher price targets, which we do by taking our fib off log scale. We're not going to do that today, but overall, I think Marathon really not at a bad price here. You can see on the daily as we switch over to that, after we had that bounce and came back down again, we're at this 0.5 of the fib. We have all this resistance on the daily to overcome, but should it do it, kind of like you could see last time, it was bouncing between the resistance and then the support that it made. It's bouncing between before it came up and rode those up and made some higher highs there. So we'll see if a similar move plays out. But overall, I don't mind this value here. Now, if you like Marathon, and I do like Marathon as one of the top Bitcoin mining stocks, I don't mind if, let's say, the markets turn bearish with rate cuts for the next 3 to 6 months. I don't mind that, because if we do get Marathon down here, I really like this asset here at Market Psychology. We try to look at the, it's hard to see the forest through the trees is the old expression, but we try to zoom out, see the bigger picture. And if you do the research and if you like something enough, you've weighed the pros and cons, and if you're feeling comfortable enough to buy it here, then you should love it when it's down here. So you want to put your money where your mouth is and only buy what you truly believe in. If one big down move is going to shake you out, and then you're going to sell at a loss, and you shouldn't buy it to begin with. So something I look at as far as, and by the way, a lot of YouTube channels, they don't talk about this enough. One of my essential questions for any stock or crypto is now a good time to buy? And you can say value-wise, okay, sure. We have the fib drawn, trend lines. Those are two ways to look at areas to buy. We have the moving averages. We're at the 200-week moving average. That tends to be a deep time to buy. But as you can see, we can get well below the 200. So this is a very volatile asset. Anything in crypto is. So a couple things I look for. One, I have this 1020 MA crossover, Heikenhashi single, blah, blah, blah. The green dots show buy signals, red dots show sell signals. That's one way to do it. There's another buy sell indicator. I use this more in a bear market with even monthly indicators, monthly and weekly. And this is more of a lagging buy sell signal indicator. So you're not going to get as deep a value and be able to sell right at the top. You're going to get, maybe 50% of what's in the middle, whereas the other one, you're going to get a bigger chunk out of it. If you DCA that way. Another way to to analyze if it's good value is the stock RSI. And when this flips, and on the weekly, it's possibly getting ready to flip, when the blue gets above the orange, that tends to also be good value times. You can see blue above the orange on the weekly here, blue above the orange on the weekly here. We'd be at a loss from this part, but that's okay. It's hard to time bottoms. Blue above the orange here. So it's possibly getting ready to do that, and that probably would coincide with one of our buy signals as well. So those are some things I look for as far as when it's a good time to buy. I just gave you about half a dozen different indicators to look for, and I tried to cross-reference them and make sure there's some level of confirmation, but everyone's comfortable with different indicators. Anyways, let's move on to Riot. I want to talk more about Riot platforms anyways, because I have their balance sheet up here, and as you can see, Riot, it once topped at around 80 bucks, and right now it's at 8. So a 10x will put it at around $224 billion. If you heard that noise, sorry about that. My cat's knocking stuff off the counter. I'm going to worry about that after the video. So we're in this downward channel. This looks so much like Bitcoin, okay? And we're at the lower ends of it. I don't hate Riot here. We're even at the 236. Again, you can wait for confirmation in any of those ways I told you about. If you're thinking that this can do a 10x or more, you believe in it, great. One area to research, and I'm just showing you this very quickly. You can get way more in the weeds of it. You can go to a site like MarketWatch, which is great. You click on financials and then balance sheet, and you get a chart like this. And something really quick to look for is positive assets to liabilities. And anytime a stock has a really good ratio, you want it to be at least a ratio of 1, but, over 2 is even better. You can see here, current assets, 1, it's trending up, that's good, and it's at $1 billion, okay? Total assets, also trending up, and it's at $2 billion. So 1 and 2 billion total and current. All right, here we have total current liabilities, which is about, roughly 8 or 9 positive ratio, which is amazing, and total liabilities at, let's round up, let's say 250 million. So 250 million divided by that, that's about 8 times higher. So as far as assets and liabilities, it's hard to find many stocks that look a lot better than this. So I really like this as far as the balance sheet is concerned. I think last week we looked at Wolf. Wolf's looked decent, still pretty good, but not as positive as Marathon and Riot, and that makes sense as far as the price goes. So Riot, I like their balance sheet. I like their long-term potential. If you research, and again, look at the positives, look at the negatives, you research, you like it, I think you're getting some good long-term potential value here. But again, you want to go in with the perspective. If you're going to buy and hold on and wait, this is part of my plan, not financial advice for you guys. But if you're going to buy and dollar cost average and wait for a possible cycle top to return, which is what happens in crypto, if that's part of your plan, waiting for that as far as when to take profits, then you have to be comfortable buying it here or even down here. Should we continue a bear market? I'm not saying that is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. But as far as good value areas, we have this trend line. Okay, we have the lower level of the fibs. That's great. I wonder if we have any monthly moving averages. That's not looking too great either. We have a lot of resistance. What is curious about this? So you see this 200-month moving average? If we hit this trend line of the tops that Riot has hit before, that's running right into this level at around 160. Can you imagine Riot doing a 20x from here if it hits the upper end of this trend line once again? So, again, we want to see the forest through the trees, and this possibly might be a great time to buy it. And should Riot eventually do a 20x? I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying, again, we talked about the levels that cryptos have to test to prove to me that they're still strong. Okay, it has a great balance sheet. That's one thing, but we talked about the fib levels. Is it doing anything or is it just dead? I'd say, I'm a little bit mixed on that because I don't like how it's at the 236. But if there's enough positives, I see us take a stab at it, then I might. But if it gets above the 76, revisiting all-time highs, and then gets above that, it is possible this could be a 20x play. So not saying that will happen. There are many altcoins that just died, but I do like the volatility in this one. It shows that it's still alive. So Riot, I think, not a bad play. You could wait for more confirmation, or you could dollar cost average in now and wait to buy more at the next fib level at around $7. So a couple ways to look at it there. All right, let's move on. We're going to start flying through these a bit quicker. CleanSpark, let's take a look at CleanSpark on the weekly. And I didn't like how it fell off quite, but it's holding the moving averages pretty well. It got down to the 100, the light blue, the 100 week moving average, and now it's sitting nicely in the 200, but it's between the 200, the 618 fib, and the 50 week moving average. So it's pinched in right there, and I'm sure if we turned on this stock RSI, it's possible this thing might be getting ready to flip positive too. On the daily, you can see we have some resistance here. Okay, all that support, it broke down big. Now it has resistance. So the bearish way to look at it is, we have all the daily resistance as well as 618 fib. And if we start getting rejected around here, then it's possible we come down to this 0.5 at around $8.50, or even this trend line that it's been honoring down here at around, I don't know, I'm going to move it out a little bit, something around $7. I do have this lower trend line just from absolute lows, so if you're a big CleanSpark fan and it goes way down here and you're like, hey, this is great deep value, then it's something like $2-3. Not saying it's going to get there, but just, we do want to consider those things in the big picture. Should it happen? Cipher's still looking strong. And as far as, this big self, it bounced pretty good off the 618 fib and is holding on to the 200 pretty well. So it kind of reminds me of Bitcoin on the daily a little bit, where it's with the 200 at a little spike still as the 50 and the 100. As far as the weekly, if anything, I do like how we've had a few red candles in a row that are losing overall strength, and so maybe we're going to start to see some green soon. You can see a lot of times we get a few red candles in a row, and if we're making higher lows, that can tend to be positive. This one, we were making lower lows, a little bit of a fake-o here at the 50 before it broke down to the fib. But I like this fib. I like these supports. I think Cipher, again, is another one where I think it has good dollar cost average value at this level. Next, let's go over to Wolf. And Terwolf, we got a buy signal on the weekly. Ran into the 0.5 fib, and it has the 200 week moving average. So it wasn't quite able to quite get above it. Think of it as a whale breaching above the surface of the water, went back down, and now it's going for round two. And so if it can get above the 0.5 and the 200, I think that's going to be very, very bullish for Terwolf. It had a great bounce here off the 382 and the 50-week moving average. The candle body held onto the 100. And so next, we want to see this weekly continue and get above these areas. So looking pretty good for Terwolf. Next, let's go to Bit Digital. And Bit Digital, very similar to what I just said with Terwolf. We do have this doji candle. Yes, we have this buy signal. We do have a doji candle. You can see how it went right up to the 200, sold down a little bit. We are hanging above the 100 weeks. So doji means undecided as far as which way to go. But the fact that we just had some red a couple weeks in a row, the fact that the stocks are overall looking positive, maybe some of that positive momentum from the stocks is going to bleed into Bitcoin. Stocks are moving out of fear into neutrality and greed, and so crypto may be getting ready to move out of fear as well. Again, Warren Buffett always said, be greedy when others are fearful. Crypto has a lot of fear right now, and this might be a possible good time to front run some of the fear and a possible positive mood. So we'll see. But anyways, stuck between these moving averages, but overall, it is showing that maybe this wants to move up. You can see the 0.5 fib and the 200 week moving average both supplying a lot of resistance. We want to see we want to see some consistent closing at above those levels, and then turn on the jets for Bit Digital. So It did have that all-time high of 33, which is a little bit close to a 10x from here, and maybe it can go higher. So good deep value for Bit Digital. And next, let's go to Bitfarms. And Bitfarms, right on this trend line, hitting these higher lows, and we have a buy signal, and we bounce off the 0.5, and we're above all those moving averages as support. So I think that looks pretty good for Bitfarms. You can say, maybe this candle doesn't have a lot of strength, but who knows? Maybe you're getting in kind of early on it. Let's take a look at the daily. Yeah, daily's just grinding up and got right through the 200, the 100, showing a little bit more resistance. So maybe it comes back down to the trend line or even the 200 and then continues higher. I could see something like that if you're looking to get in, but if you don't want to miss out and you're just going to dollar cost average in, I wouldn't blame you here. I think Bitfarms is showing, we have the weekly buy signal, and it's showing good support and the trend line. So, yeah, looking pretty decent to me. Next, let's go to Iris Energy, and it is settling at the 618. Had another move up, very tiny doji candle there. Let's zoom in. You can also see another similar upward trend line, higher lows, and here you can see it's running into a little bit of resistance at the 20s. Sure, it's going to run into resistance at the 100. And again, just kind of like we talked about with the last coin was at Bitfarms. Maybe we get a little move down to the fib, up to the 50, move down to the 100, something like that. If we start seeing some positive movement, higher lows, we could. I think right now we're getting into key times encountering some of this resistance, and if some of that positive market flow from stocks moves over to Bitcoin, who knows? We might be able to get ahead of some things. But again, I want to say that cautiously because one, we never know what is going to happen. We want to remove emotion, and even though I hope and I wish that positive momentum will move over to crypto, we also have to take what the market's giving us. And if the markets are showing us some possible positive movements, then that can be something we can get on top of. Again, consider some of these different indicators. These weekly stock RSIs on a lot of these are getting ready to possibly flip positive. Now, they might stay negative for a little bit, but keep an eye on these indicators specifically. Lastly, let's go over to Core Scientific. And Core Scientific, all right, the stock RSI really isn't much use there. It's hard to show too much on this one because how new it is. Came out around the time of the the Bitcoin ETF. But when we draw a fib from the low to the high, it came down at a good bounce off the 3.2, and it's overall doing pretty positive. Let's go over to the daily. It came back down to the 236 and the 50-day moving average, and it's having a nice move up. So, it's countering some price action levels of resistance, but really, if it can get above that 1230 level, that'd be pretty good for it. The next level would be, I have this extra 0.9 on the fibs to catch fake outs. It's pretty good at it. So if it's able to get above, 1411 around there, then I think it would be confirmed, not a fake out move, and bullish as well. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Again, comment below if you have any of these Bitcoin mining stocks, what your thoughts are on the overall crypto market. And yeah, I hope you all have a fantastic Tuesday. Take care.